2015, the APA, the American Psychological Association, in cooperation with members of the military and intelligence communities, issued the Brookline Principles for the ethical practice of operational psychology, also known as military psychology. The Brookline Principles were a response to the Hoffman Report, made into allegations that psychologists had assisted the Bush administration with the implementation and development of enhanced interrogation techniques at the likes of Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib. The revelation that psychologists who are ostensibly bound to things like the Hippocratic Oath and the Nuremberg Oaths would participate in practices deliberately designed to inflict harm caused an enormous scandal within the APA and within psychology community at large. So the response was this: the Brookline Principles for the ethical practice of operational psychology. Sum it up in one sentence, it would be: if you're doing psychology to somebody in order to inflict harm or without their knowledge, then you're not doing psychology, you're doing military. Psychologists can't do torture, in other words. I'll go through the Brookline Principles one by one to show you how fundamental and basic they are in the implementation of a humane practice of any sort. But first, let me note that the Brookline Principles were not without detractors and fierce opposition, specifically from Division 19 of the APA, the Society for Military Psychology. Anyway, back to the Brookline Principles. So let's go through what the Brookline Principles actually are. Number one, the practice of psychology is based on an ethic of do no harm or non-malfeasance, and this doesn't change even if you're in a national emergency. Number two, ethical concerns are at their highest when the intention is to actively do harm, to use your knowledge and your expertise in the field of psychology in order to inflict maximum harm on someone. Number three, those concerns are heightened when the subject is unaware that they are being subjected to psychological techniques. They're not consenting to the attention, let's say, of a psychologist. Number four, the risk is heightened further if through secrecy and compartmentalization, the psychologists themselves that are participating are unaware of their participation in a certain mission. Number five, the effectiveness of a particular technique does not justify the implementation of that technique. Number six relates to transparency and accountability, some system of oversight and monitoring in order to ensure that people's rights are not being abused. There's only two more, bear with me. Number seven is members of the profession have a responsibility to refuse tasks which violate this code of ethics, their Hippocratic Oath, and yet refusal within a chain of command will prove immensely difficult because of accusations of insubordination or ineffectiveness or whatever, because of the laws of armed conflict. And number eight, finally, if an operational psychologist operates outside of these ethical frameworks, they should surrender their title as a psychologist and instead work within the frameworks of armed conflict. So there you have it, the Brookline Principles, created specifically to delineate between military operations and psychology. And this all brings me to my final point with the Brookline Principles. Specifically, the tactics employed by the field of operational psychology could look much more menacing and terrifying and secretive than any of us might imagine. In order to understand that, we need to learn a little bit about the history of the use of psychology in the form of torture and domestic repression. By looking at a time in history where terrifyingly effective secret police kept a chokehold on a gigantic population by employing a tactic called Zersetzung, a German word meaning biodegradation from within, also translated as corrosion or attrition. So let's learn about Zersetzung.